In a totally coincidental but not unexpected moment for our first episode, the Court of Appeal declared the Finance Act of 2023 null and void for, among others, lack of public participation. Let's pedal back. My name is Alex Ndegwa, and this is Kenya. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've all been part of, or we've seen our friends, our family members, our co-workers, and our fellow countrymen invoke their sovereignty under the Constitution, making a couple of demands to the current government, including a complete overhaul of the governance practices in this country. We have taken to social media to voice our frustrations. We've chanted in the streets, we've come up with colorful slogans and songs and dances, all in a bid to make our voices heard by the very representatives that we elected to represent us, but have selfishly chosen to promote their own interest over our own interests. Now, let's take a step back and figure out how we got here. Now, we recognize that the intense invocation of our sovereignty under the Constitution by Kenyans may have been sparked by a cocktail of factors. And in fact, if you randomly picked any Kenyan, they'd probably have a view or two about that. But on this space, we focus on one key factor, and that's the constitutional foundation of public participation, aka read the room, but constitutionally. Now, the long-standing deafness of both our executive and legislative arms of government have clearly been a huge catalyst for the events of the last week. Now, initially, while many Kenyans were struggling between the high cost of living and many other ills that plague this country, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back was the Finance Bill of 2024. Now, if you've been in a coma or in a vacation, or probably don't have much of a clue about what I'm talking about, I'd give you a summary of the Finance Bill, but they'd probably tax me for it.
A section of Kenyans ripped apart the budget for the financial year 2024-2025 and called on members of the parliament to reject the 2024 Finance Bill set for tabling next week.
Kama utabitiza hiyo kitu, walai, usiwahi kuja kusimama juu ya gari ati nikule unaomba.
I will not claim that I know the ins and outs of coming up with a finance bill for an entire country, but I do know a little about budgeting.
I think this is gonna go down in history, in Kenyan history, as a time when young people really showed up for a protest.
Right from the beginning, professional groups, civil society leaders, and ordinary Kenyan citizens took upon themselves to create awareness about the Finance Bill 2024, including an initiative to translate it into vernacular languages to make every single household in Kenya understand what underpinned the Finance Bill of 2024. And a key message across all concerns was that in the context of the high cost of living and the hard economic times in Kenya, the Finance Bill of 2024 was a time bomb and a poison chalice. Hence was born #RejectFinanceBill2024, a song whose echoes will rise above the attempted internet blackouts and attempted media suppression to be eventually heard across the country, across our region, and across the world. Through all this, and even with the Kusalimiana initiative, the political class held stubbornly to the delusion that this revolution was sponsored, that international organizations were behind the revolution, that there were certain political actors that sparked the agitations of Kenyans, including one member of parliament who on official record stated that some of the photos of Kenyans demonstrating and raising their concerns across the country were fabricated photos.
I can tell you as a graphic editor that they do not belong to this country. Photos were being taken off the internet and being edited and posed as Generation Z.
Wameshika simu ya iPhone, wanajiita Gen Z. Wanatoka maandamano, wanaingia KFC kukula kuku.
Who's leading this? I don't think there's a specific leader. We are doing it scared, we are doing it tired, but we are doing it for them.
So, in a historical moment, the revolution did finally arrive in the form of citizens occupying parliament for a much needed connection and conversation with their representatives on the Finance Bill of 2024.
We have some breaking news coming in. We're going to show you new pictures coming out of the Kenyan capital of Nairobi. What you're looking at right there is protesters have breached the Parliament building. Advanced, we're told, inside the building.
And they said if they pass this controversial finance bill, then they should sleep inside Parliament, referring to Kenya's lawmakers. There's been an extremely extraordinary scene here.
Their response? Extrajudicial killings and abductions. Now, that's not very good host behavior.
At least one miner has been killed by police in Ongata, Rongai, Kajiado County. Residents told Al Jazeera the miner was caught up in crossfires. Police fired at anti-tax protesters in the area.
These protesters standing over a man who's apparently dead. Police fire a non-lethal round directly at them.
The current wave of abductions and disappearance of individuals linked to the ongoing countrywide protests have taken Kenyans down memory lane of an era when those opposed to government were arrested and tortured.
When the Kenya Kwanza government took office, the leadership had sworn that these tactics in reaction to political activities would not be tolerated.
But did it have to come to this? Did we have to lose the lives of our fellow countrymen for the political class to realize that the Constitution bestows upon them the responsibility to listen and represent the interest of the people? The simple answer is no.
I actually wanted to come and pay respects to everyone who lost their lives on Tuesday.
Eric Shieni, Beasley Kamau, Erickson Mutisia, Credo Yaro, Emmanuel Tata, Ibrahim Wanjiko, and these are the ones that we know. And we are going to continue fighting for you guys.
Na sio ndio nafanya wananirushia tia gas na madaktari ndawatibu aje na ni wenzenu. Kuna wagonjwa 10 wote wanakufia hapa tu ambulance haizifika.
Just recently, the Court of Appeal put its weight behind public participation as a core principle in the process of making laws and policy. Let's talk about the constitutional foundations of reading the room, aka public participation, in a bit.
All powers, all sovereign powers belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be, underline the wording shall, mandatory, be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. The people may, optional, may, optional. That is it, John.
Echoing the Eldoret constitutional defender, Article 1 of the Constitution provides that the people may exercise their sovereignty at both the national and the county level. Article 10 of our Constitution sets the ground for public participation, stipulating that public participation is a core value and principle of governance. Scroll down to Article 118 that mandates Parliament to pass laws and conduct its business with the involvement of the people. If you scroll down further to Article 232, one of the core values and principles of public service is involvement of the people in the delivery of services to Kenyans. Kenyans, our country may lack many things: food security, water, good leadership, manners by certain public officials in handling our funds, heck, even the ability to say the truth in certain high quarters. Sorry, I digress. But if there's one thing that our country does not lack, is the number of times our constitution, our laws, and our Kenyan courts have pronounced themselves on the importance of public participation in the governance of our country.
Because they have given us the curse of unemployment, we will make it our business, we will make it our daily employment to occupy every single week, every single ministry until we sort out this mess.
I want to urge and persuade those who have not spoken yet to also concur in opposing this motion, not because of disrespect, but because of respect for the young men and women who have lost lives, who are now muted because they cannot speak.
True and real public participation legitimizes the laws and policies passed by a government in the eyes of the people. And it also acts as an important counterweight to secret lobbying and rent-seeking behind closed doors. Our Supreme Court has been outright that public participation ought to be real and not illusionary. Yet the government has constantly proceeded to make the exercise a charade, a mere formality, and a checkbox for their business.
We are the ones who carry militias. We are the ones who go and carry cattle rustlers. We are the ones who have got companies that are doing business in government departments. We are the ones who are stealing the money. Look at the national government, call it down, bring it down to the National Assembly. We must begin to look at issues like CDF. We must look at the Women Fund. We must look at the structure. Do we need all the people who have been given offices?
Now, if you disagree with me, then riddle me this. How does the Finance Committee receive hundreds of proposals? How do our representatives watch Kenyans go to the streets, express themselves on social media platforms with the key message that the Finance Bill of 2024 should not be passed, yet still proceed to pass the same finance bill and recommend to the president to assent to it? If there was ever a mockery to public participation as a constitutional principle, then that's your evidence.
What you do, members of parliament, the staff of parliament have to be honest with Kenyans. In the way the budgets of parliament are prepared, there are ways and means of reducing the expenditure in this house in a manner that will reduce the burden on taxpayers.
Unataka kusaini nini? Nini hiyo unataka kusaini wewe? Unataka kusaini nini hapo? Stop right there. Kwamia hapo.
Make no mistake, the finance bill is just but an example. In the recent times, we saw the government proposing the increase of the road maintenance levy, and the then CS of Transport came to Kenyans through physical meetings on social media platforms and expressed that he had listened to the voices of Kenyans and that based on that, the road maintenance levy would not be increased. Yet a few days later, we saw a notice that published the increase of the levy. If that isn't grade A gaslighting, I don't know what is.
The Ministry of Transport spent a better part of the session putting up a defense for the increase of the levy.
That this is the first year that we had to suspend contracts because there is no enough money from road maintenance levy to maintain your roads. We and in the ministry will provide leadership. We are going to think and we will come back to you with solutions that will not transfer the prices of fuel, make it higher than it is at the moment for the people of Kenya.
So I ask, where the hell does the government get its guts to subvert the constitution while their very authority derives from it? Why were lives lost confronting the government to listen to the needs and concerns of its citizenry? And maybe the bigger question is, has public participation taken a dreadful and darker meaning in this country? Must we lay our lives for our voices to be heard? It should no longer be business as usual when it comes to matters of implementing the Constitution, and specifically public participation. Every law, every regulation, every order, every administrative act, every policy should be subjected to public participation and take into account the views and concerns of the citizenry. And when I mean input, I don't mean representatives sitting in a room stuffed with sitting allowances funded by our own taxes, pretending to listen to the concerns of the citizens only to pass the same legislation as was proposed initially. We should not allow the executive and the legislature to be a listening party of their own echoes. And so unto the government we say, read the room, but constitutionally.